Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of The Great Pretenders. My name is Joshua, and all five of you left may remember this channel as Kickoff Commentary, where I made a bunch of videos, some of which people even saw. My most popular video on the channel, of course, was the video about Dak Prescott. I think, guys, it's fair to say that I was mostly correct in that video.
Yeah, I'd say that's correct.
Dak Prescott, top 15 quarterback.
Yeah, easy.
I thought it was fair. As you can hear, I brought some friends along with me this time to help me more honest and make things more interesting here. Gentlemen, feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Robbie.
I'm John.
Gentlemen, yes. So that was one of the most viewed videos. Another one that had heavy viewership, of course, was kind of the unfortunate one that was Hakeem Butler is the top receiver in the 2019 draft class. Gotta take my lumps on this one, fellas. He has not been it, Chief.
No, I understood the take at the time, but DK's just too good.
Great potential. Lots of people were on him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some reason to be said that Arizona's offense has not been a great place for any receiver not named catch over 3 seasons. I think speaks more to the fact that I was just wrong on him. So,
Where is he now? The CFL?
Yes, he signed with, I think, like the BC Lions of the CFL. So just a complete misfire on that part.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you get it wrong. I mean, you look at Stephen Hill in 09. He had similar combine reps to DK, and he had like 40 career catches too. So sometimes sometimes some athletic receivers just kind of fool you. But speaking of the combine, we saw the combine this week, and there are some just absolute mutants out there. I think that the guy who stole the show, of course, was Jordan Davis, the mammoth from defensive tackle, Georgia player. That's as you may remember, like I said, for the 5 people that remember, I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan. I know he won't be there, but Davis is probably number 1 on my board for guys I want the Cowboys to pick up. Now you guys are not Cowboys fans, so feel free to name a number, state your team, and a couple of guys you might like to see them pick up this year.
Well, I'm a Bucks fan, and hope you don't think I'm a bandwagon, because I'm not. I've been a Bucks fan for a long time. But...
Name 3 quarterbacks before Tom.
Oh, don't even get me started. I can name plenty, but there's plenty. That's a different conversation. But obviously the Bucks are picking pretty far back, so it's kind of limited. And I guess it just depends on if they do get a quarterback. Because if they don't, I still don't really know if I want them to take one in this draft. I'm not in love with any of them, but that far down the draft, you kind of just do whatever. But I'd really like to see them take a corner. I like Kyrie Elam out of Florida if he's there. Trent McDuffie's rising a lot on people's boards, so he may not be there, but I wouldn't be mad at a corner at all. They need the help there.
If it was Booth Jr., would you consider that a win?
I would. He's a good player. I think he's a bit underrated, but I like the top tier corners, but obviously they're not going to be there. But if they do take a quarterback, man, we'll see.
So after the top 3 of Stingley, Gardner, and McDuffie, I do think it flattens out a little bit. Elam and Booth are fine, but after that, I feel like there is a big drop after those first 5.
I agree.
Let me ask you this. As we'll get into over the course of this, am not high on any of these quarterbacks in this class. Is there anybody they could take in the first that you wouldn't be upset by?
Ritter's the only one I wouldn't be upset by. I think he has the most potential. Willis has looked good at the combine, but I just don't know if he's got the size that you want. But I like Ritter. I wouldn't be mad if they took him. I still think every one of them is developmental, though. I don't know if there's a quote-unquote pro ready like they like to use in draft circles. I don't know if there's a great one in the whole draft, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look back at some of the older videos, it holds up still today that I'm a big completion percentage guy, and if your completion percentage didn't impress me in college, it's concerning deeply. And I'm pretty sure Willis has a sub 60, and the only guy that has been successful with that is Josh Allen. And no offense to Malik Willis, but I just don't think he's the physical specimen Josh Allen is.
He's not, which I do like Malik a little. He might be okay. They just all need development. I mean, there's odds are a couple of them are going to be good. We just don't know which ones.
Well, and another thing is college production for me. I mean, Willis was on a Liberty team, so they should have been winning 70-0 every week. They weren't playing Division I schools, and that really wasn't what happened.
At least you can say that for Ritter. I mean, other than Alabama, they were pretty much.
And I mean, if you go back to last year when we look at a Division II quarterback there, you look at Trey Lance.
Yeah.
And Trey Lance, had 0 interceptions in his full season in college. Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic. And speaking of Trey Lance, John, I think I'll let you take over. I believe you're a fan of the 49ers.
Darn, I hadn't guessed what team I was a fan of. So yeah, we don't have any first-round picks.
That's tough.
I was going to lead with the fact that if I were to keep with this first round theme going, then my team wouldn't have any picks. But since my team doesn't have any picks, I'm going to suggest a player that any of the teams picking in the first round would be grateful to have. That's Jermaine Johnson, the edge
Big
rusher
boy
out of
from,
Florida
Georgia,
I
State.
right?
like him.
Oh,
He's
Florida State,
rising
my apologies.
fast. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
rising
Florida
fast.
State.
He's really good.
This man has elite size, pretty good explosion that correlates with his speed. And he's not the freakiest athlete, but he's pretty damn good. He's great enough, and I just think he's the most refined edge rusher in this class. Probably not the best coming out the gate, not the freakiest, like I said, but I think he has most of the moves, and I think he could turn out to be a star. What do you guys think of him?
You know who he reminds me a lot of? I can tell you exactly who he reminds me of. Same school, same measurables, almost same height, 12 pounds heavier actually. He reminds me a lot of when Brian Burns shot up draft boards a couple of years ago from
Yeah.
Florida State, and Carolina
Yeah.
ended up taking him at 16. And I think it's safe to say he's been pretty fantastic for him.
Oh yeah, he's been great. Yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
9 sacks the
Also a
past 2
comp I've
seasons.
heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes the
Yeah.
most sense as far as comparison. You guys already over there and have just a fantastic defensive line, headlined by Armstead, Kinlaw, and of course Nick Bosa. So adding another horse to that stable would just be unreal.
Man, gotta feel bad for those NFC West quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and speaking of,
It'd be great to have Jermaine Johnson, but just before we go into the other topic, his comp, you said Brian Burns. One of the weaknesses people also pick for Jermaine Johnson is his weaknesses against the run game, which happens to be or was a weakness of Brian Burns. Now he's figured that out. So I think if we're using that comp, then I think he'll also figure out the run game. He'll be just a tremendous 3-down player.
moreover, with you guys in particular, even if he doesn't figure it out and he's a straight pass rusher, it almost doesn't matter because he's got so many guys covering down on him. I mean, you guys, like I said, have got one of the deeper stables in the NFL, and
Yeah.
if he's just a situational pass rusher, I mean, I think Micah Parsons showed us all last season a great situational pass rusher can transform a defense, and that defense doesn't even really need transforming. It was already got him to the NFC Championship game, so. I mean, they're going to be a heck of a threat. And in that NFC West, of course, the big news of the day that we have to get into. I'm going to give a little inside baseball here. The original meat topic here was not going to be about this, but obviously this kind of broke, and it's all anybody wants to talk about is the Russell Wilson trade to the Denver Broncos. As you haven't seen the details, Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick are going to Denver in exchange for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant.
Wow.
I'm going to get out ahead of this thing right now, guys. I hate this for Seattle.
I don't like it. I mean,
I second that.
I don't think people are saying Seattle got fleeced. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I just don't. For one, I don't really get the timing. Why? What was the need to get rid of Russell so quickly, and why? And I understand that he had the no trade clause, so he kind of had a say where he wanted to go, or he did have a say where he wanted to go. But if it's me, and it's just these draft picks are kids you don't know anything about yet. Obviously you can scout, but Russell Wilson's a proven top 5 quarterback. I don't get unless I'm getting 3 1s, I'm not trading him personally. And you guys may disagree, but wow.
So here's my thing. I look at the value we've seen for other quarterbacks traded, and I look at RG3 way back in 2012. And Washington, then is something different now. The Commanders gave up 2 1s and 2 2s to get a player that we hadn't seen play. Just that season, we saw the 49ers give up 3 first-round picks for a guy that had never played. And I don't necessarily think those were unjustified moves. You couldn't get, and Russell Wilson got more than that, but not enough more for a guy who's been a perennial Pro Bowler, who has a career passer rating average over 100, and who has a Super Bowl ring. My big issue with the trade, because the assets they got are fine as far as the picks themselves. My issue more so is with the 3 players. Drew Lock is awful. The 3 longtime viewers of this channel will know that I think Daniel Jones is one of the worst draft picks of the past 25 years. That being said, Jones has a higher passer rating for his career than Drew Lock does. Drew Lock has shown nothing to indicate he's anything of value. Russell Wilson had as many touchdown passes this season, despite the injury that Lock has in his career. You move into Shelby Harris, fine player, but fine player at age 31 is not something you should be getting in return for the best player in your franchise's history. I mean, he's on a 2-year contract. He's going to be 31 and 32, and I'm sure he's a good locker room guy. That's what I've read today, but that just doesn't matter. You sign good locker room guys for the vet minimum. You don't get them in return for... There's only going to be one Russell Wilson trade for the Seahawks. It's the only chance they're going to have at this. As far as Noah Fant, I do like Fant a lot as a player. He's super young still. I think that's the best asset they got out of this. But if I'm Seattle, I mean, the main reason I don't like it for him is you look at what they got. I say keep Locke and Harris and give me more picks, because with as Russell Wilson goes, so do the Seahawks. That roster's awful.
Yeah, it is.
And listen, I hear some rebuttals out there that hey, they got 4 picks, and yeah, they did, but it's quality, not quantity. I mean,
Yeah.
Pick 9, yeah, that's valuable, but the rest of it, you got players that have a higher chance to be. I don't want to put down these players, but they have a higher chance to be unsuccessful in the league, and then you just got two. Who was the third player besides Shelby Harris and Drew Lock?
No
was
offense.
Noah Fant the tight end?
Noah Fant, yeah, I'm hearing you can fetch a high 2 for him on the open market, but you got Noah Fant, who's never surpassed 750 yards. I think he said
He's never passed 700 yards.
700. Yeah. Wow. You got Shelby Harris, who's been spent, and you just got Drew Lock. And I mean, I like Drew Lock. Great kid, says all the right things. Great dude, I'm sure, but he's just not it. I think as Colin Cowherd said today, in NBA terms, the Seattle Seahawks got dunked on by the Broncos.
Yeah, and I mean, for Seahawks fans, when it rains, it pours. They cut Bobby Wagner just a little while ago as well. And I get this one more. I mean, I was on a fantastic contract for Bobby Wagner, not so much for the Seahawks. And I mean, with the era coming to them, but that's one of the. I mean, he was the last guy from that team that won that championship back in 20. I almost said championships because that seems like that. I mean, that team. That's kind of crazy to me because you look at. It's like a tornado. They spun up overnight, and they went away just as fast.
I thought they were the next dynasty. I mean, really, you look at what they had and how young they were.
Bane of my nightmares.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as he said there, I mean, the Harbaugh and Carroll. I mean, for those 3-4 seasons there, I mean, that was better than any film. It was like Avengers quality matchups. You had 20 Hall of Famers. It felt like in those games. But it's crazy to make a reference here right after the Malcolm Butler play. And I'm sorry, Seahawks fans, if you're listening. I promise there is a point to this. Keith Olbermann did a segment that following Monday on ESPN and said that they should blow up the Seahawks. And I thought it was absurd because of the roster being so good. And he was like, but you can't recover from a loss like that. Little did I know, of course, that we would see this occur again with Atlanta in 2016. And as they shamble like a zombie since then, it's very obvious Olbermann was right the entire time. You can't come back from a loss like that. It's too damaging to the psyche because these are people. And I don't think that Sherman and that defense ever really forgave Pete and Russ for that pass. It's pretty obvious that the accountability thing that Russell had or that Carroll had going was shattered that day. And the Seahawks have been shambling. It's hard. It's weird to see, but I mean, I think it's fair to say, guys, the Seahawks roster has been bad for a couple years now.
Well, it's not.
Oh yeah, they've been the Cleveland Browns. I think we've said before, with a good quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah, their roster's has bright spots, but from top to bottom, I mean, they've had holes, and their drafting hasn't been elite other than DK the past couple years. And if you do draft well, you can, Cleveland can happen. You can go from bad to good, but they really haven't been.
Of their last 52 draft picks, I believe I read that 3 of them have been Pro Bowlers and 1 of them's the punter. I mean, that's unreal.
That's just because when Pete first got there, all those draft picks they made, they were just knocking them out of the park, every single time. I mean, they were getting 4th, 5th, 6th rounders.
Yeah, didn't they get like something like Bobby Wagner, Sherman, and Thomas in the first class? I mean, they were rolling from day zero. I'll ask this though. So with today's moves gone, with Russell traded, and with Wagner gone, and I'm not going to let you count Fant because obviously he was in the trade. In which players from the Seahawks would you actually even want on your team? Because I can say DK and Lockett and Jamal, and then I stop.
It's a struggle after that. I mean, I think they got the one lineman from LSU, Damian Lewis, who's pretty good, but you don't see a lot of assets or even young guys that you want to develop especially on the defensive side. I mean, the defensive
Well,
side
I
of the
mean,
ball is just kind of
the thing is, the Seahawks are kind of like the Rams in that they haven't really had picks for the past half decade or
Exactly, yeah.
so, but they also haven't really retained those guys. I mean, say what you will about the Rams' moves, and I've said plenty in personal conversations, but they've kept most of that core together. I mean, they traded Goff for a different quarterback that they gave up the picks for. They obviously extended Jalen Ramsey. The only guy that they traded was Cooks, and I think they got a decent haul back for Cooks, if I remember correctly. I think they got a 2 when they traded him to the Texans.
I think so, yeah.
Meanwhile, I mean, Seattle, obviously the Jimmy Graham, Max Unger trade, that was the beginning of the roster downfall. I mean,
Strange to me.
yeah, I mean, Jimmy Graham was fantastic. Like, I think it's been lost to history how good he was with that same scheme. Like, him and Gronkowski was an argument, and it was one Gronkowski had won, but it was an argument.
Yeah, it was.
The way that Kelsey and Kittle kind of is now, I think. And he fell off in Seattle due to injury a little bit, due to scheme, I think more so. But the main issue for Seattle is that you don't trade Pro Bowl centers. It's just very bizarre that they chose to go that route. And before that, the Percy Harvin trade didn't really work out for them. It didn't matter because obviously they won the Super Bowl because that 2013 team was just unreal. But yeah, I mean, the roster, L.J. Collier, Rashad Penny, Malik McDowell. I mean, you look at their high draft picks for the past several years, and it's just by and large not been very impressive. I like Jordan Brooks. I think he's okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say that. I like him. We'll see if he can take that next step and take the role of B-Wags, but
it's just going to have to.
I think he's one of their brighter spots.
I think it's fair to say that Seattle is gone for a long time now. I think this is the door slamming shut for good on the best era in their team's history. I guess the sad thing is,
yes, you're right, but Seattle owner or chairman Jody Allen, she basically chose Schneider and Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So the pressure's on them. They have to win. And Pete Carroll's 70. I don't think he'll be staying in the NFL for more than 5 years, but within those 5 years, more or less, I think he's going to be pressured to win. And so, while the three of us might think that Seattle should blow it up and just start over, rebuild, let's go from scratch, I think Pete Carroll is going to do everything in his power to try and win some ball games. And, he has the 9th overall pick. He has a lot of more assets now. You can trade Noah Fant. I think Pete Carroll is going to go looking for another quarterback, and he's going to determine whether or not Drew Lock is the answer. I know Pete Carroll was at the Combine. I think he was at the quarterback day in particular.
They said that was
the only day he was there. Yeah, the only day he was there.
Sitting next to Lane, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, exactly. So Matt Corral.
Yeah, Matt Corral's coach.
Maybe. So we'll see whether the Seahawks are. I definitely think they'll be in the market for either a rookie quarterback or a veteran. Perhaps maybe a Carson Wentz, a Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think we're afraid to send him up there at all. And maybe a Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the guys who put that roster together are the guys that tore it down, are the guys that are being allowed now to tear it down again so they can try to build it back up. And yeah, as you said, Pete Carroll's in that Belichick age range, and Bill's the greatest of all. He's got to be slowing down, and moreover, the Patriots didn't enter a slash and burn rebuild. Tom just left, and they've had to put it back together. I mean, I can't imagine Carroll's coaching 10 more years. Good grief, he'd be in his 80s in the NFL level. I just don't think you can do it for that long.
No.
And so if they are trying to win now, I mean, Matt Ryan, of the names you mentioned, would be the best choice, I think, there. But then you're giving up assets again, and you're just shuffling around deck chairs. You're not actually improving. I mean, I think the Seahawks are worse today than they were yesterday.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think if this was like a quarterback draft class of last year, or maybe this doesn't hurt as bad because none of us and most of the draft experts don't see a blue chip or even like a diamond in the rough kind of. So if this was like a blue chip quarterback year, you can go up there and maybe not a first overall, but
if this was exactly the same as last year and they got Justin Fields at 9, that'd be a different narrative entirely.
That you'd feel a little better. I mean, you still would feel great, but I don't see that. I mean, maybe we're just all wrong, and like I said, one of these guys is probably going to be good, but it's just there's not as many blue chips I feel like this year at the quarterback position, so that maybe they'll have to get a free agent, but if they get a Jimmy G or somehow a Matt Ryan that they would have to trade for, I mean, that'd be better, yeah, but man, that's just tough.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, Pete's gonna have to win now.
So, I mean, the Seahawks scheme when it was at its best, I think it could have been functional with most quarterbacks because they had Unger, and more so they had Marshawn behind him, weighing 260 pounds, bowling over everybody. the Seahawks O-line is in shambles for the most part here. It's better than it's been in the worst years.
It's
And
still
you know,
bad, though.
Chris Carson's hurt, and Rashad Penny has never been anything special. That's a deep concern. But let me say this, and this is kind of one of the things I think is going to be really fun about the Great Pretenders, is the hot take Bible. This is the goal, to kind of keep us honest on our takes. And just to kind of, and if we're wrong, you know, you can call us out on it and say that we put it down. So I'll sink or swim. I'll throw the first one out there. This is my first official hot take. I believe DK Metcalf has played his last snap as a Seattle Seahawk. I really do think that he looks at what happens today, and he's not interested in catching passes from Drew Lock on the last year of his rookie season. I think he's going to force the hand, and I think, you know, by the time we get to August, he'll be wearing a different uniform.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right, but I mean that would kind of lead to a Seahawks trying to blow it up type deal. So does it? I don't know, man. This is just wild.
It's a value thing. I mean, you look at the
wild.
Vikings, and they didn't think they were blowing it up when they traded Stephon Diggs for all those picks, and they drafted Justin Jefferson. I mean, if you can get 2 1s out of Metcalf, and I think he's the kind of guy at his age that's worth that. You know,
worth a lot.
With where they are, I think it's more than reasonable to assume they do that kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. Well, what does that mean for like Lockett then? Because he's an older guy, probably still worth a little bit. Do they? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
I've seen Lockett rumors this afternoon. I don't understand them just because of how his contract is designed. I mean, Seattle would take such a cap hit. I don't even think they can justify it.
Didn't they like lose money by trading Russ already? Like their cap situation has to be hell at this point.
I think overall today's moves gained them like $700,000 in cap relief, which is just
bizarre,
unreal.
Those contracts
but I don't know where the guarantee set. They could maybe do something in trading Lockett like the Jags did for. When they traded Nick Foles to the Bears, and the team they traded him to took up more of the bonus than expected.
Yeah,
that was an absurd trade in its own right. I can't believe Jacksonville got out of that. Like the only good move Jacksonville's made since that 2017 season is somehow trading Nick Foles for anything other than
that was crazy.
But you know, any final thoughts, boys, on any of the Seahawks moves today?
Well, I just want to say about the emotional roller coaster of you know, Broncos fans, like Jerry Jeudy tweeting out I'm gonna be sick or whatever when Aaron Rodgers resigns with the Packers, and then 5 minutes later they get Rust. So you're just
man,
I mean,
I'm
for Broncos fans though. I mean, wow.
Denver. Well, I'm almost not. It's almost not fair. You get Elway by accident, you get Peyton by accident, and now you get Russ by accident almost. I mean, it is back into these franchise quarterbacks. They don't draft them right, and the best one they've drafted probably is Tebow.
That's going to be a crazy offense. I like the offense a lot. So
at least that franchise is consistent about it, right? I mean, they can never draft their own guys, but hey, at least they're good at getting other
people. They figure it out anyway.
I mean,
so quarterbacks.
The biggest loser today, as far as actual contention in the 2022 season, is probably the Chargers, who just moved to third in their division. I think.
Wow, don't you feel bad for Derek Carr? Like, look at the quarterbacks he has to play.
I think it's got to be the Raiders.
Man, look at those quarterbacks. I mean, Derek Carr's good, but you got Mahomes, young Herb, who we all think is elite and even better.
You're Chargers fans. You'll not find bigger Justin Herbert fans in this podcast.
Oh, for sure.
For those of you guys who watch baseball as well, Justin Herbert throws the deep ball the way Ken Griffey Jr. used to swing the bat. I mean, it is the best deep ball I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's just mesmerizing. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean. And it's a shame of it. I mean, like the good news of it is we are guaranteed wars now. There's going to be, even the Raiders with Carr. I mean, every one of those games is going to be must-watch television. No, the Raiders are
not a bad team. Josh McDaniels has that stigma of his last stop of that guy that bailed or whatnot. He bailed on the Colts.
Well, he bailed on the Colts, and he's the guy who washed out in Denver. So I'm sure they're going to love getting to play him twice a year.
In Denver, so.
Yep. That'd be crazy.
Josh McDaniel's going to have this chip on his shoulder to do well, and so, you know, he wanted to win before, and it was going to be hard, but now it's going to be even more difficult. Now Denver's good.
Now Denver's
Josh McDaniels, good luck with that.
Good luck that whole division.
McDaniels, because if you go back a year or two, the hand he's dealt in Oakland, it's actually Las Vegas. It will always be Oakland to me, guys. It's going to take forever for that to ever change.
So tough.
But I mean, you look back at those Raiders rosters. I mean, the one that had Trent Brown, Colton Miller, Rodney Hudson, Incognito on the O-line. I mean, I'd much rather have been handed that team than the one he's being handed now.
Yes.
And you know, obviously there was the situations with Arnett and Ruggs this season that nobody could have foreseen. But you know, through no fault of their own, as far as the front office, you know, the Raiders are a worse team today, I think, than they were at this time last year. So it'll be it'll be interesting to see how Gruden moves on from the Mayock era of just burning first-round picks. And I mean,
horrible.
they weren't even all terrible players. They were just bizarre timing. Like
Bizarre
Clelin Ferrell
picks.
at 4, Alex Leatherwood.
Oh.
The only pick that really panned out was Josh Jacobs. And even then, he's had some injury problems.
Colton Miller good? Is that one of Gruden's
Colton
picks?
Miller
No,
is better, I think.
Yeah, better.
I've heard some rumblings that Colton Miller was not as polished, because if you guys remember, that whole thing during that draft was
17, McGlinchey Miller.
Yeah, there was a coin flip, and that basically determined who got McGlinchey.
Yeah,
and so the Niners won the toss, and they got McGlinchey. But I've been hearing rumblings that Colton Miller is the higher upside tackle, even though McGlinchey was like the better.
So from everything I read, McGlinchey out of the
prospect.
gate was significantly better, and in recent times it's leveled off because McGlinchey's hit his ceiling. And
Is Colton Miller, is he good now?
He's been improving. From everything I've heard, he's been improving. PFF grades have looked solid. I hate to be this guy. I will not be this guy very often, but his Madden rating's gotten better. And for offensive linemen, I mean, you put a little bit into that, I think, just because it's so hard to grade for the layman. Outside of the David Bakhtiaris and the Tyron Smiths, it's hard to say for sure. But from everything I've heard, he's been on the upswing. Really, I just want to see how the Patriots' short game offense works, and if the Raiders. Hunter Renfrow seems to be one of Belichick's lab-built, scrappy slot receivers. And Bryan Edwards had a better season. I think he's been getting better too. The question is, I wonder if they do want to try to replace Henry Ruggs' production with a receiver in this draft class.
I think they got to go O-line. It's just too bad they got rid of so many. But we'll see.
Is Incognito still around?
I don't think so.
I mean, he's got to be
Raiders?
40 years old by now.
Yeah, I don't think
he's
around
up there. I don't know if he's still around there.
I don't think so.
So the big news of the day, because the NFL for the offseason has been just moving. Before the Russell Wilson news was the year-long, not season, but calendar year suspension of Calvin Ridley for gambling. Again, to make a baseball reference, we were in Pete Rose territory here. The Garden of Eden, there's the tree that you can't eat fruit from. If you're a professional athlete, you can do pretty much anything but gamble on games. Why? I mean, I just don't get it. Calvin Ridley's contract is not, he's not scrounging around for Kansas spam here.
No.
I mean, it's really dumb.
Let's not pretend other players don't gamble, but the thing is, most players don't use their own name and address for their account.
Here's the thing. He got raked over the coals for it, and I'm going to be honest, I never understood why, because he was right. When Chris Carter said always have a fall guy, he was right. I mean, if you're Calvin Ridley, you've got to have one of your friends do this for you.
Use your business account or something, man.
Yeah, I mean, the league vetting thing found that he only bet on the Falcons, which is nice because that what saved him. If you remember Pete Rose or know about that story,
if he bet against the Falcons.
If he had ever bet against the Falcons, it would have been a lifetime ban.
Oh man!
And I'm going to be honest, he may be angling for a lifetime ban with how nonchalant he's been on Twitter about it. It's been a weird reaction. I only bet 1,500. LOL. Weird tone to take, Ridley.
That's strange.
I mean, there were ways to go about this, and I don't think that aloof contempt was the right one. I think saying nothing at all probably would have been the best course of action here. So as we remember, Calvin Ridley left the Falcons for mental health reasons. So I hope he's doing well in all of this. But it seems to me like, what, did he just get bored away from Atlanta?
No. I mean, it's possible. $1,500 isn't all that much. That's just for fun. So why? And like you said, people do it, and there's ways to get around it. Just have your buddy do it.
I read it was all parlays, and like I get it. I think everybody here loves a good parlay.
Listen,
but
I love a little sports gamble, but man, you got to be careful.
I don't play for the Falcons for one.
I don't play for the Atlanta Falcons. But wow, he's going to appeal it, and we'll see what happens.
But for another,
huge.
But for another, I will defend him on this. As a league, you open yourself up for this when you've finally torn the veil and you've let sports gambling in. Caesar Sportsbook, DraftKings, FanDuel,
FanDuel's the biggest company in America right now. It seems like holy crap.
It's not remember what it was for years, daily fantasy? No, it's just sports betting now.
Oh yeah.
You've got Pat McAfee setting parlays on Instagram every day. And it's cool. I don't mind it, but I think it's fine. But this is the kind of thing you open yourself up to when this is the situation. It's why they try. That's why they tried to keep it out for so long.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm sure that they'll look at the margins and they'll wonder why they ever did that. But like I said, if Henry Ruggs, as Goodell said, you threaten the integrity of the game here, and it's only going to take one of these guys to bet against to get a lifetime ban, and I think that'll put a cap on it. But if you ask me, I think it's more likely than not this happens again. Just
awesome.
Because as big as the league, I mean, 53 players on each team, you got to be you guys. Oh, well, I'm not as dumb as Calvin. I won't get caught, and then they'll get caught. Do you think that it's an outsized suspension? Do you think that it should have been less?
Well, I'm not sure, but I do know that I guess they're trying to set the precedent here to say, hey, we're not going to deal with this. Like it might be a little too big. I mean, he didn't bet against the Falcons while he was currently playing. That would be really bad. I don't know. A year is a long time. I mean,
yeah. So I mean,
maybe.
I think you have to. I mean, you cannot affect the legitimacy of the game. When the fixing and the boxing fights happened, that helped kill the sport. You can't have doubt about the outcomes of games.
Well, they made their point.
They certainly did. So, along with the Ridley news, we are in the franchise tag season. A few tags have been handed out. Your Bucks gave it to Chris Godwin again, correct?
Second year in a row. Yeah.
I'm sure you're not happy that this was the solution, but very happy to have him in the fold still, at the very least.
I wouldn't be as mad like last year was the first time, but they've had this whole year. Well, they had the whole offseason last year, the whole year, and in this offseason, and they may still get a deal done. They have up till July 15th, I believe, to get a long-term deal done. But that just worries me. How far apart are they? Is it the Chris Godwin asking for top-tier wide receiver one money, and the Bucks aren't budging, or are the Bucks undervaluing him? That's what I'd like to know. I'm glad he's back, but I mean, with the Bucks quarterback situation, who knows? He may not.
Well, I think the course of today's events were the biggest deterrent that you could have had as far as being able to get a deal done, because Mike Williams got that 3-year, $60 million contract.
Oh,
and if Mike Williams is netting $20 million, Chris Godwin's got to be thinking, I can net 25. I really think
I'm worth 28 if he's worth 20. I mean, let's be serious.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is kind of where the quarterback market was about the time that Kirk Cousins signed his big extension. And I just don't know that you can. I mean, I don't know that you can do it for two positions like we just did for the quarterbacks. If the receivers start getting into the 25 range, by and large, for the top guys, I mean, you're going to have just depleted rosters around the league.
Yep.
As far as the big extensions, you had, Dallas, obviously my team gave the big one to Amari Cooper, and that is something that is obviously looking like it may be hurting us here. The team, it was rumored a couple days ago that the Cowboys were going to cut Amari, and then they didn't. And then I saw a report they might trade him, and nothing's happened. And I saw a report yesterday that Demarcus Lawrence was asked to take a pay cut, and he said no. Today they restructured Zach Martin and Dak Prescott's contracts, and then put the franchise tag on Dalton Schultz. To be honest, I'm in the dark on this one. I wish I knew what we were doing in Dallas. I was on over the cap, and with simple restructures, it says we can get to $53 million in cap space. That should be enough.
That's a good amount of money.
That should be enough to keep the horses in tow. Maybe re-sign Gallup if they really want to, and then get the draft picks in the stable. I'd do that.
That's what everyone's doing these days, right? They're just extending people.
Yeah, it's all restructures. I mean,
contracts down the line.
I mean, the Saints have been playing a dangerous game for 10 years now, and I think the horses are going to come to roost a little bit here. I can't imagine they keep Teron Armstead. I just don't think that's likely. So I'd like for us to do a little bit of that. I mean, if you don't want to restructure everyone, that's fine. But I think just enough to keep this stable together. Because I think with the NFC, losing Brady, losing Rodgers, I think that our window opens up a little bit. As San Francisco beat us, and they're probably the better team after that wildcard game. But I think that if in the right situation, we could give them a run for their money. The Rams, they needed a lot of breaks to win that championship. Stafford didn't play very well in that game. So I
almost blew to the Bucks as well. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay has for whatever reason they get to the playoffs and they aren't the same team. So I don't think it's impossible that if you keep the score together, you could catch a break or two here and there. Obviously, we haven't to this point, so it could just be internal. Now, obviously, I think with every Cowboys fan is hoping if they don't put together a run this season, brings in Sean Payton next year. But I think I'd like to hand if that is the case, I think I'd like to hand Sean the best version of this roster that we can, and I think Amari Cooper and Demarcus Lawrence staying is that. But I've been wrong on the team before. I'll admit I didn't like the Frederick and the Martin picks. I thought that the bat value was off on both of those. So I was an idiot then. I'm probably still an idiot now. So I'll reserve judgment. But as it stands, I would rather keep those two than let them leave. Another player that received the franchise tag was David Nijoku of the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns disappointed me probably more than any other team this past season. I said in this circle that I thought they had the best roster since the '07 Patriots heading into last season.
Did they make the playoffs this year?
No, they missed the playoffs entirely.
Yeah, they didn't make.
Yeah, they had some injuries, but I don't think it's an excuse. As good as they were, I think they could have survived injuries. They went 8-9, had 5 Pro Bowlers as it was, and they had guys with enough talent to do it more so. I think this was the referendum on Baker Mayfield for me personally, and I'm out. I know he was banged up. It's not lost on me that he was banged up, but Baker has yet to throw for 4,000 yards. Baker has yet to put up a 100 passer rating season. Baker's yet to throw for 30 touchdowns. Baker has yet to get that completion percentage to 64. I mean, his career passer rating is an 87. It's not impressive, and I just don't think he's the guy. Would you guys have a differing take on Baker?
No, I
No,
mean,
not at all.
I've kind of said that for a little while. I don't. This year doesn't bother me as bad because he was just so hurt, but this team just had too much talent. I mean, you look at their roster up and down before the season. There was no reason they shouldn't have been.
You could count probably
so much
2
better.
Pro Bowl talents at every position.
Oh yeah, I mean they were just loaded. So this is the end of the line for me if I'm the Browns on Baker. I mean I know he was hurt and that stinks and that's not a great way to evaluate, but man that team was just too good and he's just not put up. And I know sometimes the Browns weren't great when he was there, but you hate to see Odell be better somewhere else, and you're just like, wow, was it Baker? And then it just keeps piling on, and I'm just he's a decent quarterback, but I wouldn't extend him. Give him
Odell somehow bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a Reddit comment that said, it's funny that Jarvis Landry, Odell, and Austin Hooper all suddenly forgot how to catch a football when they went to Cleveland. There's a common denominator there.
I never thought Baker was the number 1 pick in the draft. I just didn't see him like that. But
well, no, I didn't want to. I didn't think he was that guy. I know he was good at Oklahoma. I mean, you look at his numbers. I mean, that second season, 2019, 22 touchdowns, 21 picks. Brought it back around again in 2020 a little bit, and then was back to being okay this year. So he's been on and off.
Run-heavy offense, which it's as easy as it's going to be for Baker. Play action, run. One of the best running games you got. Play action offense.
I mean,
they see those kind of stats.
They could lose their number 1 running back for the season in week 1, and then still have a top 10 running game with ease. And then they could probably lose Kareem Hunt, and as well as D'Ernest Johnson played, the fall off is not. It's not massive. I mean, he had
you and John could be the running back for that team. Look at that O-line. They built it the right way.
Is a great running back, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, D'Ernest Johnson underrated. He's one of them AAF alumni. You love to see that too.
I think running back is plug and play for them. Look at they've invested in the O-line and D-line, which is how you build a team. If you ask people, and there's no reason they shouldn't be winning. 8-9 is just too disappointing for a team like that. And I know they're still figuring out how to win because they're Cleveland, but man, it's just. I think we're past the Stefanski era, past the Freddie Kitchens era, where I was, screaming at the TV on the play calls that they wouldn't get Odell involved on slants. But I mean, Jarvis Landry's probably gone now too, and so you're left with, Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPJ, Anthony Schwartz, and Rashad Higgins. I mean, how did we get here in a year? I mean, Baker Mayfield ran off one of the better rosters I've seen, and I like Baker's kind of swagger. I like the attitude about him. Oh, I think he's pretty badass. But
at a certain point, the results haven't been there.
They just haven't. They got to be at some point.
I mean, and they've played good games. That week 1 against the Chiefs, nearly perfect. The playoff game against the Chiefs last year, pretty good. The game against the Steelers last year in the playoffs, that's one of my favorite games of all time because I do not like the Steelers.
That was a great game.
But it's the results just have not been there when they've needed to be for the Browns. And, it's been, Baker's been there for 4 years now, and he's not shown us a version of himself that
Decisions coming up.
Of the number 1 pick. And if I'm the Browns, here's my thing. I think this offseason, you look around the league, you look at a Kirk Cousins, you look at a Matt Ryan, and you look at the roster and you think we could push this over the top. I'm calling Atlanta every day if I'm Cleveland, because Matt Ryan is sitting, in the nuclear disaster going on in the wake of 28-3. And the Falcons took a tight end to start the rebuild last year, and if we get into that now, we'll be on that for another 45 minutes entirely. So I'm not good, but it's one of my least favorite picks in a long time. So, it's a shame. It's a shame seeing Baker not improve and just the Browns just stagnate, because the Browns were on the upswing. And it doesn't feel like they are anymore.
Nope.
In terms of seeing Baker out there, though, it's been 4 seasons, entering season 5 now. It has me thinking. There are guys I feel like every team has them that are out there every week for seasons on end, and you just groan every time you hear their name called. So I asked you, gentlemen, who are some of the least favorite starters that you can remember to see consistent time?
Quarterback who's holding back a really good roster. Speaking of
I'm
Baker,
wondering.
you know who he reminds me of?
Troy
Jimmy
Smith?
Garoppolo.
Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo.
He went straight to it. Good old Jimmy G.
Both players, when their defense vanishes, when their run game isn't working, and it falls onto the quarterback, neither players are able to elevate their game and take their team over and win and do what needs to be done. I'm sorry, Baker Mayfield is just younger Jimmy Garoppolo with maybe a better arm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, didn't you send me a statistic at one point? Didn't Jimmy G have a sub 50 completion percentage in the second half of the playoffs this year?
Wow.
Jimmy Garoppolo is the reason we didn't win the Super Bowl, if I'm being frank.
Oh,
I don't
man.
disagree necessarily.
I can't disagree either.
I think if we had a quarterback that wasn't scheming open a wide open fullback, a wide open receiver, not missing the screen passes, I think if we had a quarterback that could hit those layup passes, that we could easily have beaten the Rams and probably handed it to the Bengals.
I think any team from the NFC,
was a
including
quarterback difference.
I think any team in the NFC but the Eagles would have handed it to the Bengals. They're one of the most outsized talent teams in history. No offense to Joe Burrow, I love Joe Burrow, but the Bengals roster is not one that should have been hosting the Lombardi Trophy in any case.
The Bengals got very lucky.
The Bengals got very lucky.
They could have won that game.
They should have won that game, really. I mean, you look at the way they played it.
A lot of things broke the Bengals' way this year, but yeah. I guess you could say the reason the Bengals didn't win it all is they just weren't ready. Their roster composition.
I mean, you look at the 49ers, and you guys know in here, I've been critical of Kyle Shanahan, before in some of his play calling, but Garoppolo is very clearly what the issue was in this playoff run. There was nothing that occurred there that they could have done. I mean, if it's Matt Ryan, if it's Trey Lance, even I think they're probably playing that Sunday in February, and they're probably hoisting a 6th Lombardi Trophy. Which is why you guys terrify me next year. Honestly, I don't really want to deal with Shanahan with a quarterback of his choosing, because I think that lends itself very well to danger. Robbie, you got a starter that chaps you.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to say Jameis. I was so hyped when they took him, and he put up some pretty good stats as far as yardage. But imagine, let's just take his 30 Thursday season. Imagine he cuts those picks in half. What kind of team are the Bucs? I mean, they weren't as good as they are now.
You can argue he gets to 5,300 yards that year with all those drives continuing.
Oh yeah. I mean, he led the league in yards that year. Obviously, had the 30 touchdowns, But like, imagine if he even cuts that in half, or has an elite one, like 9 interceptions. Like, man, and that Bucs team's not this one, but they were going up.
That Bucs team's not this one, but
but they were good.
Shaquille Barrett's best season.
Yes,
statistically, and that team is 7-9. Among those games, you've got a 1-point loss to New York, a 7-point loss to New Orleans, a 4-point loss to Tennessee, an overtime loss to Seattle, a 3-point loss to Houston, and an overtime loss to Atlanta.
Wow, half of those go your way. You're a playoff team.
If Jameis hangs around, you're looking at 11-5, and you're a threat in there. But I mean, that's just not who Jameis Winston is.
No, and I was so hyped when they took him. I really was. I love him.
I think if Jabo manages to improve himself, then I think he deserves, I guess, a third chance now in the league. I think he's earned it. He went 5-2 with the Saints before that injury.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're giving second chances to Mariota and Trubisky, then why not Jameis?
We're giving 5th, 6th, 7th chances to Daniel Jones every week. So that's just kind of the nature of it.
Trubisky, by the way. It's rumored that the Giants want to pick him up to compete with Daniel Jones.
He's better than Jones. He really is.
Longtime viewers of Kickoff Commentary, this will continue, and it will never stop. They should
Daboll's experience with Mitch Trubisky. I think
they should bring in Mitch Trubisky, and I would not like it because he would be an upgrade over the worst quarterback since Jamarcus Russell.
Isn't he worse, technically, if you look at a turnover production standpoint?
In terms of picks plus fumbles for the same number of starts, Jones has him beat. Daniel Jones, from the same draft class, has worse stats in every way than Gardner Minshew. And here's the thing with Daniel Jones. Everyone always tries to give me the supporting cast argument, supporting cast. The Jags have lost 29 of their last 33 games. Gardner Minshew has shown more in his career than Jones ever has. Here's a stat for you guys. Minshew has more fourth quarter comebacks in his rookie season than Jones has in his career so far. I mean,
Wow.
it's unreal how bad this guy is, and and it just seems like it's not acknowledged. Everybody's, this is the prove it year. I thought the year that just ended was the prove it year. He got hurt again, and he was bad again. Here's another fantastic stat for you. The next time Daniel Jones puts 2 games together without a pick or a fumble will be the first time. You know, we saw Mitch Trubisky lead a 12-4 Bears team to the playoffs. Obviously, he wasn't the reason. It was a legendary defense that's going to be forgotten, I think, in history, which is a shame because that 2018 Bears defense was unreal.
Unreal.
But I mean, he's got 2 playoff starts. That's more than a lot of guys can say. It's certainly more than Jones will ever be able to say. So that's for the Cowboys, I've got a couple. I've been blessed certainly so far that if for the most part, barring injuries, it's Romo and Prescott. It's a smooth transition. They were the year that Tony got hurt. And so it's just backups with guys like, Brandon Weeden and Castle that are annoying. As far as actual starters, Phil Costa, the center, if you want to look up the story there, have him snapping the ball over Romo's head before the snap count on multiple occasions. In the 2011 opener, I believe it was. That was fantastic. Terrence Williams, who I don't know if he just had small hands or what it was, that he just could not field the ball properly.
Let me guess some more for you. Do they include Chidobe Awuzie and Taco Charlton?
It's got to be Cheeto.
Yeah. So Chidobe Awuzie is the answer. I mean, this is head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah.
The thing, Chidobe Awuzie is like, oh, he had a good season with Cincinnati. I don't care. I didn't really want him to do well. I didn't like what he did for us. His coverage as far as actually staying with a guy wasn't awful, but he had this set of T-Rex arms. Like if Chidobe Awuzie had normal sized arms, he probably would have been like a 90 PFF grade corner. He would have been perfect across from Diggs. But as it stands, if you looked at the deep ball that Dallas was giving up all the time, he was the reason for it. I mean, that Diggs is the opposite in that he can give up a big play, but he actually has the hands to come down with a pass or two. Taco Charlton, John, I can't answer because he was not a consistent starter at any point in time. We pretty quickly saw that he wasn't worth anything and just had to move on from that. Connor Williams this year leading the league in holding certainly was certainly a big one overall this season. But yeah, that's just kind of the stable of guys. I didn't mean to steamroll you. You guys got any more than just those 2 quarterbacks?
Well, I mean, I could go on and on. The Bucs have had a lot of bad teams, but that's the one that just sticks with me. I mean, you could go on and on about quarterback play, about last year the Bucs corner situation was not good. They had to put out some just milkmen out there.
Season.
Exactly, but you can't be too mad because that was injury stuff. But as far as starters getting it's their time. It's for other reason.
I know it's not a player. I mean, Greg Schiano.
I mean, what do you want me to say about the Schiano era in general? It's just something I like to forget. It was the blip, but hey, man, it all led to that great season, and I'm sad Tom's gone, but.
I got you the chance. Listen, if you the staph infection season, to the Super Bowl season. So I mean,
picture of him throwing those pill bags at those players stretching, I never get it out of my head because it's just so embarrassing.
See, it's funny you say that because my lasting image of that era is actually when he blitzed Eli on a kneel down.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, John. Anybody but Jim, you wanna take a shot at while you got a chance?
Do I? No, some people say Jimmy Garoppolo is the reason that we're even respectable, but I don't think it's Jim. I mean, he's an average quarterback, and as good as Kyle Shanahan is, he at least needed an average quarterback. So it's nothing special, Jimmy.
It's not even that Jimmy's just average, which he is. He melts down when it's time to go. Like the pressure situations. Like just look at that last pass of that last drive. Like he just goes, something flicks in his head. It goes berserk, and it's so strange to me.
You look at Kyle. When I look at Kyle Shanahan, what I see is an elevator. He elevates the teams he's on. He elevated RG3 when he was in Washington. He elevated Matt Ryan and Julio to their best seasons when he was in Atlanta, and he's elevated the best version of Jimmy G. The best version of Jimmy G is the one we've seen that's gotten to the Super Bowl and gotten to the NFC Championship. But as we saw in Atlanta with Ryan and Julio, if you give him already talented players to elevate, they can do great things. Now, the second half of that game, we're not going to get into.
That's a different story altogether.
Sonnets will be written about that game until we're all in our 80s. But to go up 28 points in the Super Bowl means they were doing something right in the first half. So overall, yeah, I mean, I can see Jimmy G being your answer. I can see that being frustrating for sure.
Yeah, which is why teams are probably afraid to trade for Jimmy G. They're probably like, we don't have Kyle Shanahan. He's probably like, that's the ceiling of Jimmy Garoppolo, is with Kyle Shanahan. If we don't have him, then what are we doing trading for him?
Jimmy's not going to make your team better. He's not going to lift the player.
Jimmy is not the
$27 million
elevator.
quarterback.
No, yeah.
No,
sure.
I mean, I think Jimmy's benefit compared to other average quarterbacks like a Baker is that he is carryable. Most average quarterbacks around Jimmy's talent level aren't really carryable as far as Shanahan carried him. Now, whether that's Shanahan's skill set entirely or if Jimmy is just that kind of player remains to be seen. I certainly don't think we'll be seeing him in any more conference championships after he leaves the 49ers. I doubt that much.
Which is why I think two teams that are interested in him, Colts and Steelers, are great fits for Jimmy. You can ride their run games, and Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor, and they both have great defenses.
Unlike,
I think Jimmy can operate and be a passable game manager for those two franchises. I mean, apparently the Commanders are also interested in Jimmy G, but apparently he has struck down the idea of going to that team with his no trade clause.
It's interesting to me that everyone's been surprised, by the way, that like Washington hasn't traded for a quarterback yet. Nobody wants to play for a Dan Snyder-led organization. Like, you go there because you get drafted there. Nobody's choosing Washington.
Yeah.
You know, especially after
the Russ, same thing, said no, I'm not going
Russ
there.
said no. And their offer was supposedly better on the table. If the version I saw was on the table, then, Seattle would have been chomping at the bit to take it, but Russ wouldn't have gone for it. So I understand that part of it.
Which is crazy because their roster's good. That must say a lot about that whole culture there, how badly people don't want to go into it.
I mean, it's, you can put lipstick on a pig, as they say, and the name is different, but the Snyders still own the team, and they're bad people. I'm sorry to take such a shot like that, but they're not. Dan Snyder's not a good guy. And, Ron Rivera, I think, is, and I think he's doing his best, but I think, once you step through those doors, there's a weird energy there. And I don't think it's one that goes away with the name changing. I mean, you look at the Sean Taylor ceremony against the Chiefs last year, it's one of the biggest fiascos I've seen on an NFL field.
So bizarre.
I mean...
Weird energy. I mean, you step in that stadium, there's, like, sewage raining from the...
Well, yeah, there's sewage raining on the fans. I mean, it was funny because nothing happened. But, if that had been timed differently, Jalen Hurts could have gotten really hurt, and that would have been awful. That
was horrible, yeah.
If that framing had collapsed onto him. I mean, the stadium is literally bursting at the seams, and, the organization is creatively bankrupt. And, Jackson Mahomes took a lot of heat for dancing on the Sean Taylor logo, as he should have. But the fact that the Chiefs... fan VIP section was cordoned off with the rope over the Sean Taylor logo, it speaks to the incompetence of this organization even further. So, yeah, I'm not surprised they haven't exactly put it together. But with that being said, pending gentlemen, any final thoughts on any of today's topics on combine prospects, the Browns, the Seahawks, Calvin Ridley, anything like that?
What a crazy day! I mean, I feel so bad for Seahawks fans and. Like I said, one of our buddies is a Seahawks fan, and we were in the Discord when it happened, and I literally read the tweet. I said, "No, this is fake. Hold on, let me check." And it wasn't.
I thought it was fake. I really thought it was fake.
And I feel so bad because, that's just. But before that, even Aaron Rodgers, it was kind of a big day, and that's. I'm not shocked Aaron Rodgers went back, but.
I mean, if you look at the past 48 hours, we've seen the Calvin Ridley news, the franchise tag deadline, the Russell Wilson trade, the Bobby Wagner release, the Aaron Rodgers extension. I mean, it's just been happening all at once, and we haven't had the draft or free agency yet. I mean, this has been a crazy.
I still can't believe this Russell Wilson thing happened.
Yeah,
no,
it's just
every time I look at it, it's just bizarre.
That Calvin Ridley thing seems like it was like 2 weeks ago now.
It really does. And
the NFL news cycle has been moving at the speed of light. It's just unreal. But with that, gentlemen, concludes episode number 1 of The Great Pretenders. Everybody has a great week going forward, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.